Since I'm preaching about bold women, I'm going to try to be really bold and step away from this box of comfort. You know what I'm talking about. And while I'm talking about bold women, I'm going to make it very clear that the statement I'm about to make I was given permission to say I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. But Lauren took full responsibility as a bold woman on Friday for some of the typos that are in your bulletin. And we were talking back and forth trying to figure out what was going on in the bulletin because we had had a few discussions about which text we were using, whether we were going with the Luke 24 or the Matthew 28. And in the end, when I talked to Pastor Phil, he said, "Is it still the resurrection text?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Great, use it." Because it was already printed. But in the end, you got something that was labeled for Luke, but the words came from Matthew, so we just decided to give you a little bit of both worlds, so we hope you enjoyed that. It was a fun week. So, let's look at that text from St. Matthew, that 28th chapter, which has these women coming to the tomb. These women who so boldly, that's the word of the day, pay attention, boldly came into this space. But it wasn't just at that moment that they were bold. They had been bold all the way up to that point. Having followed Jesus and been a part of the things that he was doing in his ministry, they also were there as he hung on that cross. And they stayed with him through the entire time. Even when all of his male disciples left and abandoned him, he was hanging on that cross, and the women were right there. They stayed by his side, not just to the end, but beyond, because then here we are talking about them coming back. So boldness was just pumping through their veins. They're a part of this, what's going on. And in a patriarchal society, that can be extremely dangerous, because men were always right, and women could almost always be told that they were in the wrong, no matter what. We're talking about a society where men were the ones who were counted for the votes. Men were the ones who got to have the power to make decisions. If a man did something and a woman did that exact same thing, the man would be celebrated and the woman could be stoned to death. So these bold women, to be there at the foot of the cross, mourning a criminal according to the state. They could have been stoned to death for their actions, for their tears. They could have been stoned. They could have been persecuted in any number of ways because they worshipped and cared for this man who was a criminal according to the state. Think of some of the women in your life. Who was it that had that kind of loyalty for you? When others abandoned you, which women were still around and didn't leave your side? Maybe that woman sacrificed a lot to go through these struggles with you. She might have missed some days at work, even ones she didn't have pay for. She might have put some of her own life events on hold to be there with you for whatever was going on. Maybe she spoke up in the silence because her words needed to be heard when nobody else was saying them. Bold women make appearances in our lives every day, and we see them all around us. They're here at Calvary, they're in our homes, they're in our workplaces, they're all around our community, and I see several of them looking at me right now. And so I want to share with you a story of my own. In high school, I had, all 4 years of high school, I was in both choir and theater. And one of our theater teachers was incredibly brilliant, but also terrifying. I see Jamie nodding. She was one of my high school teachers, so she knows. I cared for her, I respected her, I also stayed out of her way. I knew when to avoid things. And even up to my senior year of high school, I still felt this way about her. Like, she was brilliant, but I was terrified of her. And one morning, or one afternoon actually, we were getting ready for Theater UIL. And if you've never been through the process of Theater UIL with a child or grandchild, I promise you, just when you think you've learned all of the rules, you haven't, there are still more. There's a lot going on, including there's a limit on how many people can be involved in your show. So you get 4 crew members, up to 16 cast members, and up to 4 alternates. That's all you get for your whole show. So if you've got more than 16 characters in your show, people have to double up on parts and make it work. But your 4 crew members work their butts off through the whole show because one of them is back in the booth running lights and sound. You know, they're all over I had been doing tech theater for 4 years. I had served as an alternate the year before when we took our show to state. So coming into my senior year, I was expecting to be on the crew because I had done my time, I'd done the work, and they posted the list and my name wasn't on it. However, the names of 2 of the sophomores that I had trained and taught how to do the jobs that they were on the list for were on there. And I was really struggling with that. I didn't know what to do, and I was really upset. I was stage managing the musical, of which the scary teacher was one of the directors. And she saw me crying and came over, sat down, talked to me. It was extremely comforting, a side of her that I had never seen. And as we talked, suddenly she disappeared, and about 10 minutes later, one of the other theater directors came down and apologized to me and said that the list had been fixed and my name was now on it. And it wasn't even for me about the fact that I was suddenly on that list, and it was kind of a struggle going through that. It was the idea that this woman, who I thought really didn't care for me at all, boldly went up there and told her colleagues that that wasn't acceptable. She used her power to go up and say, something's not working. And I had immense respect for her already, but at that point, it was a greater and very different type of respect. Because here I saw this woman who cared deeply about me and about this program that I was a part of. And she used her voice to speak up and make sure that people knew when something wasn't right. And that I will forever be grateful for. And that boldness comes in many forms. We talk about how bold women are changing our world by being involved with the women in the ELCA and the Lutheran World Relief, sending in quilts and blankets and school kits and all of these things that they're making happen around the world. And the things that are happening here locally, if you've ever been sick or in the hospital and gotten one of those prayer shawls, and you get wrapped in that little bit of love made for you by a bold woman here at this church, or maybe another church, you've had that same thing. If you've gotten one of the quilts, or you've gotten to be a part of all of the incredible things that women and men are doing in Room in the Inn, caring for these men as they're coming in and getting a place to sleep and a wonderful meal in the evening and in the morning, that they're being cared for. All of these things that happen are all around us, but boldness also comes in, for some people, getting out of bed in the morning. It comes in leaving the house in the morning or in the afternoon. It comes in going to a workplace where maybe there's some hostility and you take your bright, shining love for God and boldly walk into that space and don't allow other people to bring you down from what you know is right. That you speak up, or sometimes work silently in the background to make sure that people are getting what they need, that they're taken care of, without ever expecting a reward for what you're doing or saying. And of course, if we look at our text from this morning, Joel had some similar messages, because he's talking about what is to come. He's prophesying himself about what is to come. And he specifically declares, your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. So Joel's kind of one of our original feminists, right? He's recognizing that women and men at some point are going to be on the same page. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, that they would be on the same page, that are going to get there. And he declares that even if we struggle in our own society to see what's going on, they are all equal in God's eyes. And he's making that bold declaration right then and there to the people that he's serving. And so then let's move on to our second reading and look at what Paul is writing to Timothy in his second letter. And this is coming from the first chapter because I know it's not written on your bulletins. And he says that his sincere faith was passed on to him, and he knew, from his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. And he recognizes that that incredible, deep faith comes to him from the women in his life. And he specifically mentions the women because there's a good chance that the men were probably either Jewish or of another faith, and it was the women who were making sure that their children in their homes were taught about Jesus Christ And they were serving as these original missionaries, even back in the 1st century. Women were serving as missionaries in their homes and their communities, raising up their sons and their daughters to know that they were called by God to serve and to follow Jesus Christ's example. And then, of course, one of the things that I absolutely loved as I was doing my research was learning more about Mary Magdalene. Now, the church has given her a bad rap over the years, and some churches are starting to recognize that they've given her a bad rap for the wrong reasons, but some people still proclaim it. But when you really look at her name, Magdalene was a reference most likely to where she was from, being a place called Magdala, which is the Aramaic. And so it was only fitting to say that she was Mary Magdalene. She was from Magdala. But Magdalene also means tower of strength. They could have chosen other ways to refer to her, but they chose tower of strength. That's power. And that's a bold move made by a writer who probably didn't intend to do as much boldness as they did, but I know how to read it right? And so, this tower of strength, that surname that brings so much power in for her, reminds us that we have women in our lives, and men, but we're celebrating women today. We have people in our lives who are towers of strength. In fact, if I'm being honest, some of you know it's my birthday tomorrow. And in my 31 years, I have met and interacted with so many incredibly bold and strong women who are towers of strength. I've had professors and family members and colleagues and friends who have all shown me what it is to be bold, to stand up as a tower of strength in our communities. And if I'm being honest, it probably shouldn't even be me up here today. Because my incredible colleagues here at Calvary, there are plenty to choose from. And one that I love to lift up right now is Janelle. Because the incredible amount of work that she does with our kids, and the way that she cares for them, for their families, she's always lifting them up. She doesn't tear them down. She uses her bold love and compassion and passion for what she does every day to lift up our kids, to make sure that they know that they are truly loved and cared for by God and by people of God. That's boldness. And it's not just her job, it's who she is. And I want to personally lift that up because I am so grateful that I get to work with her. So the boldness of women does exist all around us. It exists through many ways, and it can be most useful in our interactions with others. It can be helpful, but it can also be harmful. Because those women at the empty tomb could have left in fear and kept their secret. They might have just stopped right there and said, you know what, I spent enough time at the cross, I put my neck out on the line, I'm done. But they showed up that fateful Sunday morning, and they arrived at this empty tomb, and they didn't run in fear. They ran in love and joy, excited about what was happening. Because they hadn't just risked everything to be there, that as he hung on a cross, they also risked everything to come back. And then, what an incredible reward for their love and loyalty that they received. If you ever want proof that women are supposed to be also preachers and leaders in the church, look at this story again. Because if God didn't want women to be preachers and leaders in the church, God would have waited for those women to go back, get the men, bring them back, and then talk to them instead. The angels spoke to these women. And they sent them on their way, and they said, go, proclaim. The angels told these women, you are the first missionaries for Jesus Christ's message. Get out there and go. And on their way, even Jesus appeared to them and gave them, once again, this great reward for their love and loyalty. And it came and appeared to them and said, hi. Okay, he said greetings, but I like hi better because it makes it great to me. So here's Jesus who just pops up right in front of them and gives them, again, this moment of clarity and love and support to say, you are a woman who is capable and willing and truly loving and bold. Go and proclaim this great news. And quite frankly, they kept going. They believed it. We get to some of the stories about the disciples who kind of waffle a little bit. But these women knew what was going on, and they kept that message alive and well. And so, it's not a proper sermon if I don't have at some point some reference to Star Trek. And I'm going to ask you to remember that Jesus sent these women to boldly go where no man